All right, everyone. So this Wednesday's video is going to be about the Antman buff, but just to brush on it real quick, we were told a couple weeks ago or last week that Rintrah and Wong will not be rebalanced, which is good to hear. Rintrah has been a pretty big fan favorite as an easy Tigra option with that neutralize, and Wong is doing really well with long content such as AOL or ROL, or LOL. So it's good to hear that these champions are not subject to rebalance anymore. I know there are some that probably think Wong needs a buff, specifically for short matches, but only time will tell if that will ever change. So what I do want to talk about is this Antman buff, and I do like this buff. He's shock immune, poison immune, and buff immune. And my roster does not have an S99 in it at the moment, so he kind of fills that void for my roster, at least until I get S99. I do plan on eventually rank 3ing Antman, but even if I do pull S99, it's not that I would not rank both. I would probably still have both ranked just to kind of have some depth in that position. But what's really nice is that he's actually going to be useful, and that's the point of these buff champions, but he's actually going to be useful as opposed to dead weight. So I messed around with him. One key thing to kind of pay attention to here is that it's very easy once you get ramped up to maintain 24 debuffs. And even though he has an anti-miss mechanic, I don't know that I would rely on it too much. It's probably going to be more so annoying on defense, assuming you use someone like Ghost against him, but you can avoid scenarios like that, so it's not a big deal at all. So let's go ahead and get into some gameplay. So as always with most champs, there are ways you're going to want to play them, or many ways you can play them. But here I'm just going to do some pretty basic gameplay of focusing on maintaining 24 debuffs before I start to place power stings or worry about placing power stings. So here, you're gonna build the special 1, you're gonna use special 1 till you get to 12 fatigue debuffs. Once you get there, you're gonna try and maintain them through both pausing them, which happens from his dupe ability, and dashing back, or anytime you would gain a buff, you instead gain a pin particle, and that ends up pausing your debuffs. So you either do that, or you retaliate his heavy attack and you use 1 pin particle to refresh the debuffs. So we're gonna do that. It's gonna be 3 special 1s. Again, most of my gameplay is unboosted, no synergies, so that you can see the raw gameplay of the champion by itself, or by themselves. So there are some synergies that kind of speed the ramp up, but we're just gonna focus solely on gameplay without that. So we're at 12 now. We're gonna go ahead and build to special 2, getting those heavy attacks in here and there, forcing out a special attack, and since it is a ranged attack, pretty easy to trigger dexterity and pause the debuff. And then now that we're here at special 2 with the 12 debuffs and 9 pin particles, we get the max attack rating for the hit, and now the fatigues are converted into poison. From here, we're gonna build back to special 1 and then take our opportunity to both pause the debuffs and refresh them, and then we're gonna try and build back up to another set of 12 fatigue debuffs. So again, going through that judgment of whether I'm going to retaliate the special 1 with just basic attacks, or if I'm gonna bait out a heavy and retaliate that with a heavy, or not with a heavy, just retaliate it to refresh. So just going through the cycle here, we have 1 more special 1 before we get to the max debuffs. And you see here, it's pretty easy to maintain, even on this potato AI. And he's pretty close to gone. And I mean, it's the story of science champs. They don't kill quickly. It's mainly just killing them with debuffs or overpowering them with debuffs. So we are at the 24 here. I did not mean to have resonate on, so if you see the weakness, that's what that's from. And now we're gonna start retaliating his heavy with our heavy that places a power sting and refreshes the debuffs. And then boom, you see the tick there, and bye-bye he goes. So here is a second gameplay video. This is probably what I would do in a normal questing situation or in shorter fights, and that's where I'm building the fatigue debuffs, but also placing poison stings as I build to special 2, as I build to 12 of the debuffs. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm making a judgment call of pushing him to special 1, baiting out a heavy if I can get it out before he throws a special 1, retaliating that heavy with my own heavy, and then baiting out that special 1 so he gets hit with the poison sting. I refresh the debuffs, I pause the debuffs, and I build pin particles from dexing and triggering buffs. So this is probably how I would play Antman in a scenario where I can block. So a node that he's probably going to do well on because he can't gain any buffs is going to be node 24, the EMP Burden of Might node. And that node has bubble shield. So we're not always going to be able to retaliate a heavy by baiting it out with blocked hits. And it's going to be heavily champ dependent. So based on their animations. But we're still going through this rotation of building 12 fatigue debuffs, getting to special 2 with 9 pin particles, using the special 2 to convert that fatigue to poison, and then building back up the fatigue debuffs with special 1. And we're actually going to get a nice crit here on special 2. And again, the only difference between this gameplay and the previous one is that I'm actually retaliating heavy attacks with heavy attacks and getting poison stings in between what I'm trying to do when the opening presents itself. And that's just going to add to the damage, since the poison sting, when it detonates, actually does a burst of damage for every debuff that the opponent has. And we have 24, sometimes we have 25, thanks to that weakness. And actually, the poison sting debuff counts as 1, so it's 25 when it detonates, 26 when we have that resonate on. So he's going to be helpful, he's going to be useful, definitely an improvement from what he was, which was nothing pretty much. More so a defender and an annoying champion to fight. But yeah, I think it's a good buff. He's going to get used a lot more. And like I said, he's going to rank 3 on my roster because that buff immunity is very valuable. So finishing out the fight there. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hit subscribe and like, and I will catch you guys at the next war video.